Book of Ka, Episode 1, Destiny's Child. In an endless expanse of desert, a boy wandered alone. His existence intertwined with the sand, hot wind, and the relentless, pulsing yellow sun. The desert was his world, his prison, and his sanctuary. It offered him no past, no future, only the endless present of a bleak journey that unfolded before him. The child's matted red hair fluttered in the harsh wind, a stark contrast to the endless sands. A burnished iron metal gauge in his ear was the constant reminder of his status as a slave. He was owned, but the iron denoted that his life carried little to no value. Despite the physical reminder of that bondage, something deep within the boy stirred. A call, stronger than the chains of servitude, guided him towards an unknown destiny. The dry waste he trudged through all but washed from his mind his past. He could have been walking for hours, days, or his entire lifetime. Flashes of his past washed over him, even as the mountains seemed to form on the horizon. A life in the digging pits, an existence where it was a struggle to find food. He was no more than a shadow subsisting on the leavings of other, worthier diggers. He had never had any parents, as if he were formed out of the deep pits themselves, like the sand and stone, just another part of an empty and pain-filled world, to be removed, to be discarded. No one cared for him, about him. He was the child of inconvenience. He was nothing more than an outcast, unwanted and unworthy, an iron slave. The child continued his slow trudge, his wooden-soled shoes, little more than two slabs of rough oak, attached to his feet by strips of leather cord. His smock, one of burlap, fluttered upon his thin and wasted body in the harsh desert winds. The force that brought him into the desert drew the boy. It was something stronger even than his own human heart, a promise yet unfulfilled. His deep, unnaturally blue eyes fixed on the unseen destination. His mind was fractured, malleable, open to knowledge that his child's brain could not yet comprehend, seeds of a future yet to come. The child perceived no passage of time. One with the stark landscape, the boy had become an integral part of the vast empty world of sand and heat and stone. A land ruled by the damnable pulsing sun. Memory from beyond himself bludgeoned his mind with images of a civilization from before. He saw vast cities made of shining steel and concrete, spires rising into the high heavens, a world connected by invisible threads of power across the world. Then of a cataclysm that reshaped that world under the sun's wrathful, suddenly pulsing gaze, a pulse like that of a beating heart. Tradition said that it was the pulsing of the sun that had destroyed the world, the old tech world that came before the breaking. The boy found himself glaring back at that pulsing, harsh yellow globe with anger at what had been lost, though he could not yet comprehend what was truly gone. And yet, even as his consciousness began to coalesce in that moment of anger, the elusive power that tugged upon his soul sundered the child with yet another vast series of visions. The memories rained down upon him like a sudden, violent storm. Again, the child saw great cities, yet these were of stone and not steel. He saw men and women lifting their hands, calling the stone to rise and form itself out of the very earth as if by magic, as if the very earth herself were mankind's partner, made to provide them with shelter from the harshness of a mostly ice-covered earth. He watched as the fauna and flora worked with humans, as animals that were like those of myths and legends, tread alongside mankind. Great gargantuan monsters with shaggy fur and tusks. Giant beasts of burden, used in a symbiotic relationship. He saw great cats, the size of horses, stalking the wilds of the world, upon tundra and jungle alike. Men rode horses whose broad foreheads grew ivory-like horns. He even witnessed a child light a small campfire by squeezing, gently, a lizard that spat flame as he did so. A shock ran through him again as the sun dimmed and the world broke once again, this time advanced by fire from the sky and water of the melting ice. Information he could not comprehend filled his mind, pushing through him, leaving him dazed as he came out of his trance. Once again, the unwanted slave boy. An old woman knelt before him, trying to get his attention. She spoke a language he could not have understood, though he did every single word. Looking around himself, he found that he was no longer in the desert, but in a village. A series of wooden structures nestled into the foothills surrounded by the high mountains. The people of the village gathered around him, a mixture of concern and joy writ large over their faces. Before he could understand what was happening, the overwhelming darkness of unconsciousness overtook the unworthy child slave. The boy didn't know how long he floated in the darkness, but upon coming awake in a dark room, he found himself lying on a pallet covered in furs and homespun blankets. "It gets cold at night," an elderly male voice spoke. The boy refused to speak and barely moved as he watched the room, his eyes adjusting to the gloom. A very small fire flickered somewhere off to his left, and what appeared to be a very old man sat in a chair next to the exit of the room he lay in. The old man nodded toward a small table next to the boy's pallet. "Drink the water." The boy did not move. "If you don't drink it, you will die," the old man murmured. "You have nothing to fear in this place, child." The boy moved, hesitantly at first, and found a clay cup on the table. He drank deeply, just realizing how thirsty he actually was. "Slowly," the old man admonished, the baldness of his head flickering with the weak firelight. The boy slowed down, but drained the cup in just a few more swallows. "More," he croaked in a voice that seemed raw. The old man eased himself forward in the wooden chair, his beard flowing around the craggy face. "In a moment," he said. "I'm called the usher." The boy was silent for long moments, a word coming to his mind. "Usher?" the boy whispered, then said, "Means guide." The old man leaned back and waited. Once it became obvious the boy would offer nothing else, he asked, "And what is your name?" The boy looked confused. "Boy," he said after long seconds of thought. "They only ever called me Boy." Without another word, the old man got slowly from his chair. His face drew up in the pain as he did so. "Hurt?" the boy asked. The old man chuckled. "No, child, just old." He shook his head as he turned toward the entryway and whispered to himself, "So very old." He turned his head back toward the boy. "I will get you some food and more water. Nothing substantial, mind. Perhaps some broth, bread, and a bit of wine. You will need to recuperate before you can travel." "We have time," the boy said. His voice was better but lilted, in a sing-song voice as if something else were speaking through him. "More are coming." The old man shook his head. It has come at last, then. He will come out of the east across the waste, and will have no name. He will know what cannot be known. The boy laid back and let the memories of the visions flash again through his mind, some of the visions fading as if they were memories of stories heard and not experienced. The old man shuffled back into the dark room after mere moments. I have broth and the bread. He paused, watching the boy, whose eyes had gone wide in shock at the food. It isn't much, but you are in pretty bad shape. You must recover slowly. The boy scarfed the food down, drinking the warm broth and chewing the bread as if he were in a race, or as if he were afraid someone would take it from him. How old are you, boy? The old man asked as he sat gingerly back down. The child's response was a mere shrug. Silence fell over them both in the dark room while the boy finished his food. Well, this is frustrating, Usher mused. How about I tell you a story? The boy whipped his head around and nodded as he chewed the last scrap of bread, savoring the bland flavor. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The old man's gravelly voice fell off as the boy continued the recitation. Now the earth was formless and empty. The child took up the verse, his voice quiet but knowing. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the water. Genesis 1 and 2. You know the book? The old man asked. The boy was confused. I've read it, he said. Usher grew quiet. You read the book? He asked after a few moments. The boy nodded in the gloom. Sally taught me. They took her for having it, and we never saw her again. Just who are you? The old man asked, his voice full of fear. But no answer came, for the boy had fallen into a fitful sleep.